Welcome to my bedroom, which is not usually where I record videos, but this one's a little bit different. I didn't have space to record out there, and I don't really try to do it in here because, well, it's kind of messy. But I set up something here, and I've been talking about this for months now, so I finally decided to record something and talk about the why, and then go into the how as well. So I'm back here in my bedroom recording because I just set up and recorded a couple of episodes of a whole new thing that I'm doing. A series that I'm calling Capitalism Ho. And that comes from a video game that, as long as I don't mispronounce the title of it, is called Reciteer, I think. It's a really cool video game. A friend introduced me to it back in early 2010 range. I don't remember when. Whenever it came out, I'm sure. We were playing it. And it's a really neat concept where instead of going into dungeons and fighting things, you can do that, but you are the shopkeeper who sells the items. So it's very much a buying and selling game. Mostly selling, if I remember. And there's another game that I've played way more of that I like a lot called Moonlighter, which is very similar. But anyway, the catchphrase of Reciteer was Capitalism Ho. And for this series of videos that I just recorded a couple of, it's about things. It's about things that I own, things that I buy, things that I have, and why I like them. So the main question to answer is, why am I making this? Well, because I want to. Because I felt like it. Because I got the idea in my head and I thought it would be a good idea and I wanted to see it through. If it wasn't a good idea, then no one's going to see this anyway and none of this will see the light of day, so it doesn't matter. But I like to acquire things. I like to buy things. I don't like that I like it. I'm torn because I don't really care for that side of materialistic and things that just go away, but I've also started getting things not just as a purchase, but I appreciate things that last. Old things. Things that were made differently before everything was made out of cheap plastic and it all breaks, like most of the things that I have owned. Like a kid on Christmas morning, I like things. I like when I get a package in the mail. I like opening the package. I like getting a new thing, whatever it is. And there are things that I wind up using and putting into use, and I like doing that as well. I don't have all the things that I used to have because I have to downsize, because we move, because it breaks, because etc. I have to sell them. Sometimes I react and go, I need to pay off whatever, or I need money for an emergency or whatever it is, and I have to sell things that I own. Now I no longer have that thing, and I think back fondly about it. If I make a video talking about it, I always, for as long as YouTube exists and I have my digital archive on my backup server, I have a copy of it. I have me talking about it, I have me being excited about it. So I make video about it. I like collecting things. My parents were both hoarders, and I probably have some tendencies of that too that we're not going to talk about right now. But I like having things. I have a lot of things. This is just one room. There's a whole other bedroom for my partner who also has floor-to-ceiling boxes because we have a lot of things, mostly me. I'd like to display a lot of them. I like collecting things. The hunt for collecting especially. I got a lot of that. I've talked about it before on some of the personal vlogs, and I just want a way to display something. And as long as I don't have a house to display it in, it's just sitting in a box doing nothing. I'd like to dig through that box, find something, talk about it. And that's where the video comes in, because it's kind of boring just to take a picture of it. I'd rather have a video because for whatever reason I've decided to do so many things as videos recently. I make a lot of videos on different things, and this is my YouTube channel to do with what I will. So I want to make videos about things, but I can make it a little bit more interesting. I can do research on it. I can find out more than just if it's something that I have a history with myself, or if it's something that I don't have a history with, I can do research. Either way, I can tell more about it, I can talk about it in some way, and give more of a context to it, which I think is interesting. It also, in another way, maybe gives me more of an excuse to continue to buy things and collect things. There are so many things that I would collect over the years. Comics, Lego, video games. I made a list. Various technology, cameras, I mean literally everything here. I like food. I can talk about food. If I make a food, I can show it on the thing or talk about a recipe for food. Books, TV shows, I don't really know how I'm going to show that because of copyright reasons. So that would be more of just a talking about it, and maybe I can get a copy of the DVD or something to have a physical object in order to show and talk about. Anything can be on the table. The whole point of it is it's just a video series about things that I like. That's the whole point of it. I almost named it Things Michael Likes. But I really like that video game, and I think that's a good one, and it kind of sums up the whole capitalism and buying material objects. So this idea has been in my head for a couple of months now, probably even longer than that. But at least the last few months I've been trying to figure out how I could do it, and knowing that it would just be better if I waited until we moved and I had more space. I've set up on a dresser in this bedroom with all kinds of things behind me because that's all I had room for. And I couldn't wait any longer to make this. I just got the itch and I wanted to do it. So I did. Today I set up everything. I've already got, I've tried to get it in a way that I could just set up and use my old equipment that I don't take out with me and then kind of leave it there permanently. So while it would be better as a permanent setup, it works for now. I shot a couple videos, and assuming that they come together in a way that I'm at least halfway happy about, they'll be released soon. So that's kind of the why, because I felt like it. I thought it would be interesting. I thought it would be something I could talk about. I like collecting. I like having things, and I want to make videos about those things. I want to make videos with those things if they're cameras. But I don't want to do reviews. First of all, there's a huge oversaturation of videos on reviews. Anybody picks it up and just gives their 2 cents about it. So I get that, and I don't want to do the same thing. I want to do something of my own. And I don't want to do reviews in any way because I don't want to be critical of things. I don't want to be objective. These are just videos about things that I like. So I'm going to like them, and I'm going to talk about the things, and I'm going to talk about why I like them. It's not a review. Now we can talk about the how a little bit, because I also find it really interesting, and this is kind of how it all came together. I own things, and things that I buy and don't put into use make me sad. So I want to put them into use, and I find uses for old things. It's why I have so many of my old phones, and I use them for various purposes. Like, they become reading tablets, or if you watch one of the videos from earlier this year, I took some of my old tablets and put them inside of PC cases so that they would be displays, because I think that's really neat. So finding a use for some of this stuff as well. So I'll just walk you through this briefly as to kind of what I did here. Flip this camera around. Here is a mirror, because this is on top of a dresser that came with a mirror. Was this on purpose? No. Do I like it? Not really. I'd find it more useful to have a monitor, which is exactly what we have down here. There I am, on a monitor. And that's coming from this old camera here. This doesn't move quite as well. This camera here. The first camera I bought for vlogging, Canon M50. It's got HDMI out, and it does clean HDMI, which is super useful to put into this down here. Underneath my laptop, I've got an HDMI switcher, also by Blackmagic Design, which I use a lot of their products and cameras and I really like. I bought this as because I felt like it and I wanted to play around with it, and because I can use it for meetings and such, which I no longer do. I had a whole streaming setup, and I wanted to see if streaming was something I wanted to do, so I picked that up. It's got multiple HDMI inputs, which is super useful, which brings me to another camera. Anything that's got an HDMI out works really well. This is the first camera I ever purchased. I used it to make videos, and then a lot of my photography back, almost 10 years ago at this point, or even maybe more than 10 years ago. Ugh. I use this as a secondary camera so I can do close-up shots. I actually would like it to be better for close-up, but it doesn't really work that way currently. I don't have the most perfect setup as it is right now, so I just put the 50mm lens on there because it's got a nice wide aperture, and that works for a super low light setting, which is what I'm currently doing. So then we move over to, we have a top-down view for the tabletop. Anything that goes here gets recorded by this top-down view, which is the main camera that I wind up using. It is an old GoPro. Again, I repurposed it. I was using it for, meetings, virtual meetings and things like that as my camera because I didn't have a webcam. I took this from my girlfriend who was no longer using it because I wanted it, and I used it for some of my purposes for this stuff, and now it's being used as a top-down camera. Does it work? It works well. The saturation's really weird on it. I'm going to have to do some editing anytime I use this top-down view, but that's the same thing with the Canon that I was already talking about for the close-up, and then I have another one over here. The second camera I ever bought was a 5D Mark II Canon camera over here. This is pointed, whoop, come on now. This is pointed over here at this, which is just a little tabletop that I got with a rotating thing so I can get a 360 shot of whatever I'm talking about. And as you can see, because I wanted to put some kind of backdrop to have a clean backdrop instead of the wall and stuff there, I just took a bunch of poster board and stuck it all around there. Does it work? No. I want a more dedicated area for that. And then for audio, because I do a lot of talking during it, I use my old audio recorder. This is the first audio recorder I ever bought, and it's really, really noisy. So it does not work for wildlife when you're trying to capture very small, detailed things like bird calls. But I put a lav mic into it, and I also grabbed this real cheap XLR microphone, and I stand there and I talk into that. So then this microphone right here works. I also wear a lav for when I'm doing the more stand up and talk bits, things like that. And then when it comes time to talk about the products, I'm already huddled. I'm already bent over looking down at stuff. So it just makes sense to be talking directly into a microphone that's of much better quality anyway. And that's pretty much it. Is it perfect? No, but it suits my needs for what I'm currently doing. It fits with what I've got. I'd love to make some upgrades to the lights. I have much better video lighting that I don't need to bounce off the ceiling. Some soft boxes so that I can have nice soft lighting. I'd like to use better cameras. The two Canon cameras that are very old, I had to install custom firmware onto in order to get them to have a clean HDMI out so that there's no information on the screen coming from the camera. But they also don't record in 16:9 format, which is pretty important because most cameras and most devices and most screens are 16:9. So I'm going to have to edit that every time. I don't really have another alternative to get another camera that doesn't record in 16:9 in order to set up my 2 additional shots. So that's just how it's going to be. I'll just crop whenever I use those cameras, and that will be a lot of work. But that's it. As soon as we move, I'd love to set up a better space. I'd love to have a whole thing with a full-size monitor so that I can see what's going on when I'm sitting. I'd love to sit instead of stand. I would really like to have a whole thing set up with a light booth so that I can get the products on the 360 shots better. I'd love a better tabletop instead of this dirty old dresser. I mean, I cleaned it, but it's still got like ring stains and stuff. It's not my dresser. It doesn't matter. The mirror is all gross and whatever. Yes, I'd like to have a better setup. Hello? Yes, I'd like to have a better setup. Maybe when we move, I can set up a whole thing so that I can do that because I see this as a long term. I don't know how often I'm going to make videos like this. It depends. I've got a lot of stuff, so there's more than enough of a backlog that I could go through. But at this point in time, it's a fun project. It's something I want to do when I'm stuck inside. I can't go out for wildlife. It's something I want to do in addition to all of that. I just plan on releasing videos whenever I record them, basically. And something I can see doing in the long term. So after we move, I'll continue doing this, hopefully in a better space where I can set up a better thing. And then I can put a whole backdrop behind me. And I can use that backdrop to display the collectibles and things that I have. It's very exciting if it works. I don't know if it's going to happen because we don't know where we're moving and if we're going to have more space. But I really hope so. So that's... Oh yeah? Okay. You want me to stop talking now? Sorry, I have to stop now. So, yeah, that's kind of a look behind the scenes of making this new series of videos that will be releasing and coming out whenever I feel like it. I've got more than enough things to talk about as a backlog. It just depends on how long it takes me to do the research for each thing and what I find interesting about it and my history. I kind of write all that down. I don't fully write a script, which is why it takes like 45 minutes to record what will be cut down to less than a 10-minute video. There's a lot of, no, I can say that better. No, I could do this better. Maybe it will get to a point where I actually write out a full script for it. But at this point in time, it's just a fun thing to do on days when I'm not going out to see wildlife. And it should be fairly easy for me to do. And then I have a nice collection of videos of my things. Things that Michael likes.